You're very welcome back to stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia from Caravaggio to Vicenza. 214 kilometers in total for the riders, and these 4 riders on screen have been out there since kilometer 6. It's been a long slog in the sunshine, mercifully enough, for these riders today. It's been good weather for them. A little bit stormy across the region, but no sign of rain at the moment, and it looks as if they should have clear skies all the way to the finish. Rubiano Chavez of Androni Giocattoli, Venezuela, at the back of the group at the moment. The man driving it along on the front in the red of Katusha is Maxim Belkov. Low over the bars, perfect position and generating decent power. Gert Dox in his wake for Lotto Belisol. Luke Durbridge of Orica Green Edge and the aforementioned Rubiano on the back at the moment, as the bunch are starting to get organised in a big way. 3 minutes and 28 seconds, and that's coming down, shrinking fast, because it was at one stage 5.5 minutes. And those riders will surely be reeled in, but will they be reeled in before the single climb of the day? Garate has a little word with the Blanco team car. It's not too far up to the back of the bunch, so no difficulty there for the former Spanish road race champion. And Stefano Perazzi in the mountains classification leaders jersey. If the road is going up, he tends to be at the front. If there's any opportunity getting in the early break, then he's up there, but otherwise he tends to spend an awful lot of time down the back. The Bardiani Valvoli man has done fantastic work to secure that mountains classification jersey and has a very very large advantage at this point. 37 points to the good, 15 points on offer at the top of each category 1 ascent, and we've got about 5 of those left. We've got a couple of absolute monster stages coming on Friday and Saturday. Thursday, tomorrow, of course, is the individual time trial, 20.6 kilometers up to from Mori to Polsa, and that is a big rendezvous for the general classification contenders. Can Cadel Evans do something about closing the 1 minute and 26 second gap to Vincenzo Nibali? If he gets a little bit closer, well, it'll mean it'll be nervous moments in those 2 big mountain stages to come on Friday and Saturday, of which there are nervous moments, of course, for the organisers, because there's all sorts of talk of horrific weather for the region coming up. Minus 14 degrees centigrade has been suggested on at least one forecast on the Stelvio this weekend, and snow from 1,500 meters up. And given that the likes of the Gavia sits at 2,600 meters, the Stelvio, which is the Cima Coppi, the highest point of this year's Giro d'Italia, it's scheduled for 2,758 meters on Friday. Costa Lunga, 1,745 meters. San Pellegrino, just under 2,000 meters. Giao is 2.2 kilometers high, and of course the Tre Croci to finish that stage from 1,800 meters and upwards in steps to the finish. That weather forecast is ongoing, of course, and the organisers, the race organisers, Michele Acquironi, assisted by Mauro Vegni and Stefano Elocchio, currently reviewing the situation, and they say they'll give us more news after the time trial tomorrow. And most of the news we've got, of course, is coming, well, at the moment through via Gazzetta dello Sport, so they can be reliable. They were more reliable, I think, than the French sources for last weekend's weather issues. They had to make modifications on that occasion, and how that will play into the tactics of the race remains to be seen. At the moment, though, they will race what they've got. And the race they've got today is a race that should be for the sprinters. Michele Scarponi would be less interested. His major objective today is to stay out of trouble, make sure he stays up front, make sure he doesn't lose any time to Vincenzo Nibali and co. Scarponi sitting 4th overall, 3 minutes and 53 seconds in arrears, the man from Lampre Merida. Kessikov is on bottle duty. Rigoberto Uran safely nestling in there behind his teammate Zandio. And it's a relatively hot day for the riders, which they'll be relieved about. They won't be complaining about hot weather for a little while. And Peter Stetten, now we just got a shot of him. Of course, he got a wheel change a little while ago. Another wheel change for the man from Katusha, Trofimov. He's their GC man, such as it is. 16th overall at the moment, 9 minutes and 2 seconds in arrears. Not really a big player for GC, so they're not going back there for a minute with any massive urgency. 3 minutes and 10 seconds now, the gap. Can they get it to the next hill? They should be able to get it to, well, they certainly will get it to the next intermediate sprint point, and that's at Oggiano. Comes with 42 kilometers to go, so just over 8 kilometers to that second sprint, and an opportunity for Maxime Belkov to really put his stamp on the intermediate sprints competition. He's already moved into a 4-point advantage over Rafael Andriato. Could be enough for him to clinch that classification. Team Sky lead the team's classification. The most combative rider, and that's much sought after, and that was Giovanni Visconti. So he had the lead ahead of Carlos Betancourt until yesterday's stage. Stefano Perazzi now with 4-point advantage in that competition. Young rider. That jersey is on the back of AG Tour Le Mondial's Carlos Betancourt. The Azzurri Italia competition, little known, and that's for top 3 positions in each of the stages. And you accumulate points based on those top 3, so it'd be no surprise to hear that Mark Cavendish has a very handy advantage in that one ahead of Carlos Betancourt and Giovanni Visconti. Indeed, I'd venture to suggest he probably has it won. Cavendish leads the points, as we said, 8 points now over Cadel Evans. Perazzi, Mountains looks strong for him, but the one that really counts is the overall Vincenzo Nibali with 1 minute and 26 seconds, and he's surrounded by his Astana team in their sky blue jerseys. So the question is, can Omega Pharma Quickstep deliver Mark Cavendish to the line to take the all-important stage success that will add to his points total? He's now got 4 stage wins. Can they make it a 5th and give him those 25 points on the line? Well, Jerome Pino is an important part of the Omega Pharma Quickstep lead-out train. And what has he got to say about this stage?
Il y a une côte 4e catégorie à gérer pour nous.
Well, yeah, there's a 4th category climb to manage for us. For sure, we will try our best, because we have the best sprinter in the world in our team. We're already past the mountains, so we're ready. We spent a couple of days preparing for this stage. If Mark can get over the hill, we will win. If not, no. We will try to manage at the best this climb, and then we will have 16 kilometers. We had a video session on the bus about it, so we've studied well to try and achieve that win today. And he said we spent a couple of days preparing for this stage, not just by looking at the videos, but no doubt also, Sean, by trying to save as much energy on days when it wasn't easy to save energy.
Yes, well, to get through the mountains, I reckon what he's meaning there, and you know, that has been difficult for them. Looking at the videos of the climb, if you haven't got the legs, the video is not going to get you up it. So it's all about how much you have got in the tank at the end of this day. Once again, at this point in a long race and a difficult race. So if the other teams, you know, can also upset that, how will they, you know, negotiate this final climb? Will they try and make it difficult? The teams who have got somebody who would feel they can get up in the sprint, if it's a smaller group with the non-sprinters on board, so it could change a lot. We see Jerome Pino there talking about, you know, looking at it in the bus, but you know, there's so many other things that can change the outcome and the way the race goes in the final climb.
So Benny Wilkes tells us that the finish of the Tour de France is finalised for Palace of Versailles, past the monument of Jacques Anquetil and through the courtyard of the Louvre for 9:45 p.m. On a Sunday, 3rd or 4th week in July. So we look forward to that. Thanks for that little bit of info. And Andrew Hurd wants to know, do you think Cav will go for points title in all 3 Grand Tours this year? Well, that I think would be very unlikely. He'd certainly be riding the Tour de France for stages, and you might say he'd have a better chance of getting the points jersey in the Tour de France, given that they weight the points a little bit higher for the flat stages and towards the sprinters. Having said that, they offer plenty of points for intermediate sprints there as well, so it can often suit a rider who is able to get up the road in the breaks, especially on the long grinding mountain stages. But Cavendish going to the Vuelta, well, I think it's a little unlikely. Never know, though. Now, front of the race, inside 3 minutes, they're still ploughing on, trying to hang out there as long as they can. Maxime Belkov does a turn, makes way for Bert Dox on the front for Lotto Belisol. Meanwhile, it's Amiga Pharma Quick-Step, aided by just one rider from Cannondale and one rider from Argos Shimano. Lurking at the back of the Amiga Pharma Quick-Steps is Mark Cavendish in his red points leaders jersey. Kalgolas of Poland, followed by Mark Cavendish, as he has been for so much of today. Cycling Mole says, better chance of Cav winning the Sprinters jersey in the Tour. Are we forgetting Peter Sagan? Cav will never beat him for the jersey. Well, I certainly wouldn't bet against Peter Sagan. I certainly agree with that. Eris Kopecky up the road the other day in that big break. He'll be feeling his legs after that. Brian Bulgak, who we saw in a big move in the first week, the first few days, his numbers look a little bit crinkly as well. They've had plenty of use. And he's got a mechanical issue, looking for a gear. So inside 3 minutes, and they're controlling this one nicely. 45 kilometers to go, and the sprint point at Ogiano comes with 42 kilometers according to our road book. So about 3 kilometers for those riders up front, and one would presume that Maxime Belkov will be the one showing interest. Another opportunity for Mark Cavendish to mop up a couple of points. No question that BMC would try and pinch them from him, or engage him in a little bit of a scrap to try and take those points. It's not really worth it, is it? And they'd struggle to manage it.
They would struggle to manage it because they haven't got a good enough sprinter in the team. And you know, if it's a situation where you have a really good sprinter in the team, well, then we could see him also contesting there, just not to allow Mark Cavendish to take the points easily, because we see the previous one that he just rolled off the front of the bunch and took him quite comfortably, but there's nobody within the BMC team to do that, and he's going to pick up a few more points as we go to the next intermediate sprint point. We can see here, you know, the bunch is pushing along at a good pace now, and the leaders out front has really upped the pace, but unfortunately, you know, they have to do it much too early in the day, and to keep that going, it's going to be so difficult because they've been on it for the last 25 kilometres, close to giving it 100%. And when you consider, you know, a small breakaway, it's going to be really tiring, and they will pay the price if they hold on. If they're allowed to hold on, maybe is the way to relate to it, but. If they hold on for the climb, well, then they're going to have difficulty staying on the climb as well. So it looks like that it's going to be a very, very difficult one for our 4 breakaway to hold on to the finishing line.
Looking at tomorrow's time trial, Sean, we've got 20.6 kilometres from Mori to Pulsa, pretty much entirely uphill. I mean, how do you see it playing out? Is it the general classification guys that'll have it between them, or is there anyone can get in amongst them that might be a little bit out of left field in terms of stage honours?
Well, I think there's always a possibility that somebody who is not up in general classification could do something on the day, because they are not competing every day to stay up in front. And yesterday a perfect example where the stage wasn't going to be too difficult in the end, but it did create a lot of problems for general classification men and for all the peloton. We see how quickly the peloton riders just fell off the rear, and it was only a group of about 15 riders on that final climb yesterday. Then they were joined by some more. So we could see some of the guys further down in general classification who hasn't been up in the battle every day, and you can conserve a lot of energy like that. But when you look at the time trial, I think Nibali is going to be really going for it, and probably an opportunity for Nibali as well to get a stage victory, because there is talk about that. Okay, race leader, but he hasn't won a stage, and that's the press, they talk about that a lot. If you're in a big tour and you haven't won a stage, they kind of pick that out and say, well, you should really be winning a stage as the race leader. And as Nibali is dominating so well, there will be a big push on to get a stage victory, and the opportunity is, of course, the time trial tomorrow.
Do you think that's fair? Balmamian in the 60s won a couple of Giro without winning a stage, and there seems to be, from my point of view, an unreasonable stigma attached to it.
Very much so, but it's always been the case, and we've seen it, and I have seen it during my career and afterwards, when riders are the race leader and they look to be in control with their team. Then there's some of the journalists and the press, they say, well, you haven't won a stage. It would be nice to see the pink jersey or the yellow jersey winning a stage, or whatever colour jersey it is in that particular tour. And it's going to be there, and I think for Nibali it's an opportunity, because he's going to give it 100%, and to get a stage victory, I think that is looking like the opportunity for him tomorrow.
So the four riders up front, their advantage is shrinking, but not quite as fast as it was, so they're still tapping out a very, very impressive rhythm. And Belkov is doing long turns on the front. Very motivated, very strong man from Katusha, as in amongst general classification riders. They just think about getting through this one. Belkov, no surprise, he takes the intermediate sprint points. So he has added another 5 points to his lead. Now 9 points to the good, ahead of Rafael Andriato in the intermediate sprints competition, and that's a very handy advantage indeed. He just has to follow Andriato around and make sure he doesn't get in the break. So those four riders up front, 3 minutes to the good ahead of the bunch. Can the bunch hunt them down in time for this final hill? Well, you can find out after this break. Welcome back to stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia Caravaggio to Vicenza today. And the intermediate sprint was, as you saw just before the break, taken by Maxime Belkov. I can tell you that Mark Cavendish just popped out the front of the peloton to take the extra 2 points on offer for 5th position across the line. So he's now up to, by my calculations, 113 points in total. That's 10 points ahead of Cadel Evans. And can he make it a total of 35 points ahead of Cadel Evans by taking the sprint today? Remains to be seen. The four riders up front inside 3 minutes advantage, with just under 25 miles to go. Sean, it's hasn't been the fastest pace today, has it?
No, it has not at the moment, just going through that sprint point, and it has been behind the slow schedule, which is 41 kilometres average for the stage. They're around the 20 minutes coming through that sprint, which we see Matt Cavendish picking up a number of points again for the points classification. So it has been slow all day, and they've been picking it up for quite a while now. So as we get closer to the finish, they will pull back on that, but still I think it's going to run over, certainly by 10 minutes on the slowest estimated time for the stage.
Relatively leisurely. This is a stage race though, and they've got time trial tomorrow, 20.6 kilometres uphill Mori to Pulsa. Had a question in suggesting why is Durbridge in the break today, bearing in mind there's a time trial tomorrow, and he was 6th in the first individual test, but probably won't fancy his chances given the route of tomorrow's time trial.
No, I don't think it's going to be his style of time trial tomorrow. Totally uphill, and the percentage is quite a difficult one. So they're going to take it seriously because otherwise he'd not be just out in the break today.
What about the two stages after that? If Cadel Evans did a fantastic split on the climb at the conclusion of the 8th stage, the first individual time trial. So clearly, I mean, at that point he was climbing well. We know that he lasts 3 weeks. We know as well that Vincenzo Nibali is well able to last 3 weeks. But if Evans was able to chip away a little bit at that advantage, will that sow seeds of doubt heading into the next couple of mountain stages?
No, I don't think if Kevin Evans takes 15 seconds from Nibali tomorrow, it's not going to concern Nibali too much, because the mountain stages we have seen in the past, the mountain top finishes, Nibali is very, very comfortable. So to be no big worry if he does take us 15 seconds from him. And it will be interesting to see tomorrow, because Nibali, the first time trial we had here, he calculated very well. He started out quite strong. Of course, we had the descent and the first intermediate time check. He was the fastest through. Not surprising, because on the descent, I think he made up on the other favourites quite a lot of time on the descent. And he was consistent all the way through, and that's what you've got to be in time trialing. So tomorrow, from the start, they will be making that calculation. And of course, Nibali advantage is when you're in the pink jersey, everybody's out here in front of you, so you're getting the time checks on the other big favourites, on your big rivals, and that is quite a big advantage. So I would see Nibali really putting in a good performance tomorrow. Difficult to say who's going to be the better one. Is it going to be Cadel Evans is going to take a little bit of time, or is it Nibali will take another number of seconds from Cadel Evans? They've been so close, it's impossible to say at this moment.
Buzzard Smith wants to know, why does Cav ride a different bike to the rest of his team? Well, it's same make and model, but of course he has designed the paintwork in conjunction with the team. He's got a special one because he's Mark Cavendish and because he does all the winning, and he's in conjunction with them. It was unveiled, was it at the first rest day a couple of weeks ago? Nice understated colour scheme for Mark Cavendish's bike. I notice he's in the black helmet today as well. He hasn't got that one with the red colouring. Plenty of venting though in it, as indeed most of the riders, with the obvious exception there of Luca Paolini at the front for Katusha. This is a day where you want a bit of venting, because they've got the warm weather that they've really wanted and deserved after all that they've endured in recent times. Pavel Brut, actually, of the Katusha squad. And now it's shrinking fast, just over 2 minutes for those four riders up front. Maxim Belkov of the Katusha squad, third in line there in red and white. Luke Durbridge is up there for Orica Green Edge. 2 national time trial championships, national road race champion as well, of course, 6th in the individual time trial on the first individual time trial stage of this year's Giro to South Tara. Just 22 years of age. Girk Dox is up there for Lotto Belisol, 24 years of age, a couple of stage wins in La Tropicale Amis Bongo this year, so he's going well. Second year with Lotto, Amiga Pharma Quickstep before that, HTC for a couple of years. And at 24, he's been around a bit, and it looks like he's really starting to develop as a rider. And the fourth member of that quartet is Miguel Rubiano of Androni Giocattoli, 49th at overall at 1 hour and 17 minutes. 28-year-old Colombian won the 5th stage of last year's Giro d'Italia. And it's pretty cramped in there. They're starting to shape up for this. Stage 17 from Caravaggio to Vicenza, 214 kilometres, and the riders up front, well, their days are numbered, their moments are numbered as we approach the most difficult moments of this stage, heading towards the climb, and the roads are narrowing. Climb comes with 21 kilometres to go, the fourth category ascent of Crossara, 5.3 kilometres in total ascending, 7% average, maximum of 12%, and those four riders up front, Belkov, Rubiano, Dox and Durbridge, will soon be back in the peloton. They're not going to make it to the final climb, but look at how narrow these roads are, and that is going to add to complications. And no surprise to see Paolini up there, Sean, because this is kind of classics territory, isn't it?
Yes, this is certainly that style of road here, and starting to turn a bit more as well, as we see there for kilometre after kilometre, big main road straight all the time. Now we're into this section where it gets, you know, much more technical, and we could see the urgency on the peloton on the front end, that there was a lot of teams and a lot of riders trying to move up, and we can see the reason for that. And as we go on to the climb, it's going to be more important to be, you know, closer to the front, but you have to get into position as we get onto this section, and that's that was the reason that there was, you know, a lot of elbows flying, a lot of elbows, and a lot of, you know, pushing, and just competition for spaces on the front of the bunch, let's call it.
It's a challenge. We understand that we lost commentary there for a little while, so apologies for that. We are back and hope it sounds okay. Coming into you. Cesar wants to know, does the blue detail on Nibali's fork represent anything special? Not that I'm aware of. He does have special colours, of course, a bit like Cavendish. He's got his own unique colouring on his frame. He is the Lo Squalo di Messina, isn't he? The shark from Messina. So maybe he's the blue shark from Messina. Either way, I kind of like it. Nice to have that they have a little bit of personal flair, that they're separated in some way. I'd quite like if they had separate helmet colours. So here's Kopecky has his fans, and they'll be hoping that he can make it as the four become three. And it looks as if Belkov, has he moved ahead or has he dropped behind? Belkov is struggling, his legs are gone, he's got the points that he wanted, so he's happy enough with that, he'll drop back. So 1 minute the advantage for the three riders up front, with just 30 kilometres to go in this 17th stage. Join us again after these. Stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia, with three riders now out front, and Maxime Belkov, their former breakaway partner, making his way back to the bunch. The bunch now within 1 minute and 18 seconds of those three riders out front. That's Rubiano of Androni, Gert Dox of Lotto Belisol, and Luke Durbridge of Orica Green Edge, with the Omega Pharma Quick-Step squad massing at the front ahead of this final climb. They're already on the lower slopes, plenty of little climbs to take the edge off their legs before they come to this fourth category ascent of the Crossara. 5.3 kilometres of climbing for them, and Elia Viviani will be a man from Cannondale that will be hoping to get up there and get in amongst Mark Cavendish in the final sprint. So what are his hopes of getting over this climb?
Oggi alla fine con la salita sul finale è da vedere cosa succede, perché comunque
we need to see what will happen with the final climb, if the top riders will maintain the pace like they did yesterday. Also, if it's an easy stage like the one we already had, that can produce important changes in the general classification if it's a stage like that. Everything will depend on how the main group will play the last climb. Anyway, we will try our best at the moment. Things looking okay for Viviani, but Vinny Fantini's squad looking to shake things up a little bit. Is it for Mauro Sant'Ambrogio, or is it perhaps to get one of their other riders who they wouldn't have any top gallopers there, not since the departure of Francesco Chicchi. He was their top sprinter. I can't say galloper anymore. Penny in the jar for that one.
And Chicchi did not do a lot of very good sprinting. We never really seen getting involved. Wasn't in the shape at all that we were expecting to be on the very few flat stages in the earlier part. He was never really to the fore in the final kilometres.
Vinny Fantini are going to take it up. This is not great news for Mark Cavendish. He would have been hoping that Amiga Pharma Quickstep could control it right the way to 21 kilometres to go, because that's where this climb really starts. And he doesn't need to already be close to the red, arriving at the bottom of the hill, because as you can see, it's already quite testing at this moment. Still, Amiga Pharma Quickstep stay to the fore, and Mark Cavendish is still well up there. So too Vincenzo Nibali, just behind the Omega Pharma Quicksteps, as Belkov is swept up. It's been a successful day for him. He's added 10 points to his intermediate classification sprints points, and is now back in the lead of that competition. It's Rubiano that's setting the pace. That's testing and demanding one for Luke Durbridge. And Bert Dox has managed to get back into the wheel of these two riders. He let a little bit of a gap go through that last hill. Rubiano, if he gets over the top, well, you'd never know. They're going to need more than a minute, you would have thought, but if they get over the top of that hill with 16 kilometres to go, well, what sort of an advantage would they need, Sean?
Well, I think if they got over with a minute of advantage, depending on what's the situation back in the peloton, if there's some of the teams who want to push on, and then there'll have to be some teams that will want to push on. If the sprinters are distance, well, then there will be other teams who will push on, because they have riders in that they can feel could win in a sprint against a group of maybe 30, 40, 50 riders. So it's sometimes in the final, it's the peloton or what's left of the peloton decides, what the pace will be. But a minute, I think, would be a difficult one. But as we can see, 27.5 kilometres to go, and we'd really start the climb at 21.4 kilometres. So that's going to come down a lot before we get to the climb, and it's not going to be anything like that when we start the climb. And on the climb, I think it will just come down so quickly, as we see Igor Martinez there from Escatel having difficulty staying on road.
A nice bit of cyclocross skills demonstrated, no harm done, but just shows you how narrow this road is, and there's not enough room for all the riders that want to be up front and feel they're able to. Vini Fantini have got themselves nicely positioned to try something. Well, they try to launch an attack off the top of this. You can be sure something's going to happen. Sparks will fly. Danilo De Luca, every chance he'll be involved as well. As the riders up front, their advantage is shrinking, but still it's a decent one. 1 minute and 11 seconds for those three riders up front. As the Omega Pharma Quickstep team has been swamped a little by the likes of Lampre, Merida. And this is a very, very technical approach to this final climb. And that's only to the advantage of these three riders up front. They can pick their line and they're not so badly hamstrung. They're not trying to funnel 165 odd riders through a narrow space. Now, is that Samuel Sanchez moves up as well. He perhaps fancies his chances, not just for the uphill, but also for the little bits of downhill. Superb descender. Mark Cavendish still in good shape. He's right up there. And Amiga Pharma Quickstep are controlling this one nicely at the moment. Question in, why do riders put their hand up if they've got radios? Well, I suppose it's to tell the commissar that the team car is coming up, as well as calling their team car up. And the Camera motorbike really struggling to stay ahead. And they need to make a big gap, I think, between themselves and the peloton on the next little straight bit of road, because those corners, bike riders are easily able to get around them quicker. And here's a clear demonstration. Then when it's as tight as this, a bicycle is probably the better option. Saw down at the back of the bunch a few moments ago, Danny Pate of the Sky Pro Cycling team was up the road for a long time yesterday. Stefano Perazzi made it all the way to the line with the front group after being in the break all day, and those riders are really suffering.
Belkov just on the rear, one of the breakaway men, of course, and We can see there on the descent, they're really pushing on. Vini Fantini are going to try something on the final climb. They're making it difficult on the run in, as we can see, 25 kilometres, just a fraction over. So we're getting closer and closer. And we can see Prony there, Alexander Prony. He's really pushing on the descent, and a real demonstration on the straights. The motorbike was pulling away a bit, but in the cornering he was just closing down, getting real close to the motorbike. And that is the case. You know, the riders, they can just get around the corners so much better than the bigger motorbikes.
So what can the Radio Shack squad do about getting in amongst the Vini Fantinis? They have Nizzolo as their sprinter. If he's on a good day, he could get over this with Cavendish. Got pretty close to Cavendish in the last sprint that they had. Nizzolo felt that had he timed it a little bit better, he might have got up past him. Cavendish, though, looked relatively comfortable in that finishing sprint into Carrasco. 13th stage. And Mezgec as well was well up there for Argus Shimano. So those are the three top sprinters that you would be expecting to come up with a performance in today's stage. But can they get over the hill? They haven't even got to it yet, and they've already faced plenty of little testing, little leg breakers. So a minute advantage for the three riders up front at the moment. Vini Fantini, very prominent there in their Dayglow yellow costumes. It's a great look, I think, actually, from Vini Fantini. It looks fantastic and really suits Italy. Another one of these messy little left turns. And if you're down here, you're going to really struggle to get up front. Danny Pate less concerned with getting up front. He's just about getting around.
If you're down in that position, it's day's work is over. You just cruise into the finish, and there's a lot of groups there. We can see that the group of big favourites, it was only 35 riders for a moment, a lot more getting back in, but there's a lot of groups out the rear door, and they're just going to, you know, just get to the finish. No problem here at the moment. At this point, 23 kilometres to the finish, spares much energy for the days to come, and a lot of the riders in that position really down the rear are just hoping to conserve energy and get to the finish of this Giro.
So now on the front of the race, inside a minute advantage for these three riders as the meters click down. 21, just over 21 kilometres. 21.4 kilometres to go, I believe, is the start of the climb in Nantou, the village of Nantou, according to our road book. That the climb of Crossara. So Omega Pharma Quick-Step trying to put some manners on the peloton. And Cavendish looks good so far. But the thing here, Sean, is you could leave lots of room to slip down the peloton, but it's going to be tough for him to get back up if he slips a long way back. Or if he or any of the other sprinters. Nizzolo the same, Viviani needs to stay up to the front, and that's where it could get tricky for them, and then you're subject to little groups slipping away in the closing stages.
Yes, you have to stay really close to the front of the peloton of big favourites there, and get onto the climb in the top 10 riders, and then you have a little bit of room where you can go back through the group, and they are going to lose positions as they go further up the climb, but you'd be hoping that the group 30-40 riders, so you could be back in 30th position when you get close to the top of it, and that's the reason we see a lot of the sprinters getting onto these climbs. Then they feel that it's going to be difficult for them, but they have the confidence that they can make it, and the only way is to start in the front of the group and then see how you feel. But again, it depends on the pace. If there's a lot of attacks in the very area slopes of this one, then the sprinters will be in difficulty. So if there's teams who really want to up the pace, we can see Vini Fantini, they're setting a pace on the front, and the moment we see one of the Omega Pharma Quick-Step riders slowing it down, Prony, he just took it up once again, keep the pace real high. Are they going to attack, or are they just going to keep riding on the front? And their man in the general classification, Sant'Ambrogio, yesterday got into difficulty. Was it that he maybe got onto the climb a bit too far off and paid, so they want to not get into the same situation today? That is possibly also the tactic from Vini Fantini.
Okay, just a minute to the good. Gained a few seconds in the last few meters, and we're now on the climb. We're through Nantou and heading up the climb of Crossara. 5.3 kilometres. Rubiano it is that sets the pace, as he continues to do, because Durbridge and Docks are beaten dockets, you might say, at the moment. Vinny Fantini controlling it. We see De Luca is lurking in about 15th, 20th position. Mark Cavendish, though, sitting 4th man at the start of this climb, and that's a pretty strong effort. Where will he be at the conclusion of it? The attacks are going to come. And for some of the teams that haven't got established sprinters, they really need to try and give it a little bit of a shake on this hill. Can they get riders up there to do that, though? And here come the attacks. And is this a full-blown attack, or is he just setting the pace? He's just probably continuing to set the agenda, and it's dragged De Luca clear, and they're happy enough to look at it at the start of this climb. So Danilo De Luca once more showing ambition. Bert Dox is done, though. 9% not suiting him. He's got the neutral service car behind him, but not for long, I think. These guys will be coming up at a rate of knots. Great effort from Gert Dox, the 24-year-old from Belgium. 103rd overall, but he's had his moment in the sun in the Giro d'Italia of 2013. He's shown the jersey well. And now there are just two, and make that one. Rubiano Chavez goes on, and Luke Durbridge falls off a cliff. Legs filled with lactic, and he's done for the day. That little ramp. Slope gets up to 12% here. And that's just too much for Durbridge, who's going back to Dox. Dox is still ploughing on. So now, interesting tactical opportunity for Vinny Fantini as Proni continues to pace De Luca towards the top, and he will go flat out for as long as he can and then leave it to De Luca to try and establish an advantage, as Lampre Merida that have set at the pace on the front of the peloton, because they're not interested in leaving it up to De Luca. And Proni's gone. Proni's done his work. These are riders that we'll have to watch the highlights tonight to find out exactly what's happening, although they'll probably get a few updates in their ear. But De Luca is pressing on now. Half a minute to Magliarosa, so less than that, of course, for De Luca. This is the moment when Proni pushed to the maximum, then goes to the very, very top of his block, and he'll just try and grind his way up and survive. Rubiano up front, slugging it out, setting a steady rhythm, but he's been out front since kilometre 6, remember. And this fully 214 kilometres. Colombian riders have done such an impressive job. De Luca is perhaps reminded by Dox that it's a pretty good idea to maybe take a drink, and he blasts by the Lotto Belisol rider without a care in the world. Well, De Luca hasn't managed to convert all this activity into a stage win yet in this year's Giro d'Italia, and the Lampre Merida squad keeping Scarponi and Niemitz out of trouble. And Cavendish has gone south. We can't see him in there at the moment, can't see any of his teammates either, so clearly he's dropping back through the bunch. Top of the climb comes with 16 kilometres to go, so he's got an awful lot of it left if he's to survive. De Luca hasn't really got big advantage, Sean, has he?
No, it's difficult because we can see the Lampre Merida team is setting a pace. There's 3, 4 of them, 5 of them maybe on the front of the group at the moment, and it's really difficult for a rider to pull any advantage out here when the peloton, you know, is set on pushing on quite strong, and Lampre are doing that at the moment, and De Luca's 15 seconds at an advantage maybe, but it's going to be a difficult one, and he's still a long ways from the summit, because at 20.4 kilometres still to go. The summit is at 16.1 kilometres. Unless he can keep on working at it and pull a bit more out, he needs to get to the summit with at least 25-30 seconds to have any possibility of going on to the finish and having a go for stage victory.
So Luke Durbridge is mopped up by the peloton, and he'll just stay to the left and drop like a stone through the group. It's the Lampre Merida squad that are setting the agenda, setting the pace on this Crosara climb. Meanwhile, Danilo De Luca has a very narrow advantage, ploughing on alone, chasing the solo leader Rubiano. who has, well, about half a minute to the Lampre-led peloton, with Mark Cavendish struggling. Oh, and Mark Cavendish is absolutely killing himself. He's going past riders, well, he's well up there. So this is pretty good performance by Mark Cavendish. Can he make it last for another 4 kilometres? He just slipped out of shot. As we get closer to the top, the Tifosi get more and more animated. And don't touch the riders, let them do their own thing. That'll be a source of irritation. It won't have been any help, of course, to Rubiano. There was a time in the Giro d'Italia when certain riders were slingshot up the hills. But these are different days, and it's important to respect them, as Rubiano suffers towards the top of this climb. Another 3k to go.
It's a long way to the top, and we can see Cavendish is really digging in there, in a real good position at the moment. He is suffering a lot of movement on the bike, but he's battling quite well, and it's interesting to see. But 3 kilometres, it's a long way to the summit. But I think it gets a little bit easier as we get further up. We did see the real difficult part where it was, very, very high percentage, and he is, putting in a great battle, as we can see some of the other sprinters as well. I think a bit further back there, but the group is getting smaller as we go further up the climb.
Well, the last 1.5 kilometres at 3.1%, so suffer on, Mark, because it's still possible for you. Oscar Gatto is a few lengths behind. Cavendish is absolutely killing himself to try and stay. This is not where he's good at, and he's dropping further back, and he's looking over his shoulder saying, is there anyone here that can close the gap, that can come round him? And he is not exactly surrounded by Amiga Pharma Quick-Step riders, and he's getting frustrated. The body language isn't good at the moment.
He's running out of power. We can see that he's just struggling to keep it going, and we can see that just up ahead there's gaps appearing, and he's not going to make it with this group. At this point, when you lose contact, then the gap is going to be at least 40-50 seconds at the summit.
3.1% for the last 1.3 kilometres of this climb, but he hasn't quite got to that level yet. It's about 6% at the moment, according to our road book. And Mark Cavendish could tell you all about that if he was able to speak. Meanwhile, De Luca up front looks like he's going to get to Rubiano before the summit. Scarponi happy to set a steady tempo. Visconti for the Movistar team strikes out. Could they make it a hat-trick of victories? And he's not a threat overall. So Visconti looks to try and establish an advantage and get up to these 2 riders. De Luca now joins Rubiano. Will Rubiano have anything left to help him with? Visconti, what is his advantage? Foreshortened, of course, by the camera. He's certainly moving clear and showing fantastic strength and ability to recover after that effort in the Galibier on Sunday. He's on great form indeed, Visconti. Now he absolutely races across the gap, so he's going to get up to them well before the summit. The summit should be about 17 kilometres to go. We've got to make an addition to alteration to our road book, of course, because the roads back the road were damaged, and as a result, tiny little detours have added about 1 kilometre to the stage length. Giovanni Visconti has a little look over his shoulder and realises that he has managed to make the juncture and with a gap on the peloton. So now the gradient is starting to ease a little. Where is Mark Cavendish? Pelazzotti is there. Vincenzo Nibali is there, of course, right to the fore. Tamal Kangert, as he has done so much in this Giro, is pacing his team leader to the front. And these riders can't have much more than 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds over the bunch behind. Visconti can't see them. They ran the other hairpin. Well, if he can't see them, then they can't see him, and they couldn't until just that moment. Visconti, though, is the one with the strength. Takes a little breather on the wheel of De Luca and Rubiano, and then strikes out again. And Rubiano it is that has to cover the gap, because De Luca doesn't quite have it. And attacks coming from behind. Was that Sella? Visconti pushing for the top. Rubiano still has strength. What impressive effort from from Rubiano. Danilo De Luca digs in to try and stay with them to the top. Well, it's Lampre that are organising things at the front, with Niemiec followed in turn by Scarponi, 5th and 4th on general classification respectively. De Luca has cracked in well, he hasn't cracked yet, he's still pushing hard, but he's lost a significant amount of time now. Still very much on the hill, but the gradient's quite a bit easier, but that was a bad sign from De Luca. He looks behind himself to see if anyone's coming up. Visconti's absolutely flying. Niemiec on the front of the GC guys, and it's a small group. It's a very small group indeed. And Mark Cavendish should be quite a way off the back of this, you can be sure. The Lampre are setting a big pace, but no sign of any attacks, no sign of any interest, perhaps with the time trial tomorrow and the two big mountain stages coming a couple of days after that, Sean. They're less interested, they're more about saving energy for that.
Yes, I think the big favourites, they don't see any opportunity to gain any advantage, and they're prepared just to sit there and leave the Lampres set the pace here. It's somebody more further down in general classification, like Guessing, for example. Betancourt, we've seen him attack a lot, but I don't think it's going to be difficult enough for him now, because we're into the section where it's easing off as we get closer to the summit of this one. So I don't see an opportunity for anybody really to put in a big attack just before the summit. It's always possible that somebody might say, well, if I go on the final 500-600 metres, take a small advantage and really make a good downhill and try and get across to the breakaway, because we see Visconti, he is, pushing on. He's a fresher man, of course, coming out of the peloton, and not surprised that he put De Luca under difficulty. He had been out a bit further on the climb, went out a bit earlier, and Rubiano, we can see, a lot of movement on the bike here. He's really suffering to hold the wheel of Visconti for the moment.
Yeah, still very impressive by Rubiano as the man who'd been out there since kilometre 6 to be able to stay with Visconti when he surged ahead again, and De Luca is sitting in no man's land. As they head towards the top, Visconti goes again. He's trying to shift Rubiano before they get to the descent. Has a little look behind, realises he's got a gap, and Rubiano cracks. So Visconti moves ahead and he'll take the mountains points, but he won't be thinking about that. He'll be thinking about, could it be another solo victory? Well, he had 21 seconds last time we got a time check. De Luca is back in the group. So it hasn't worked again for the self-styled killer. And he looks over his shoulder and sees the massed ranks of general classification contenders and the odd sprint pretender. Massive crowd on the Crosara as they cheer the local man, Visconti. Well, he's not that local, of course, he's from Sicily. Did most of his racing from his late teenage years onwards in Tuscany. And Visconti is pressing on, manages to grab a bottle. How much of that bottle will he need with just 16 kilometres left? Maybe the little bit of extra weight will drag him down the hill.
17 seconds for Rubiano on the top there, so he's lost in a couple of hundred metres, he's lost a lot of time, but we could see that Visconti could feel he was in difficulty as the peloton comes over at 32 seconds.
Siutsu at the back of the group for the Sky team. Asanza, who we saw in the attack a few days ago, is there for Euskaltel. Oh, and we'd like a time check now, but the old GPS signal is tough to get in amongst the trees. It's just under half a minute. It's a racer's chance. He might need a little bit more than that, but a technical descent will be to his advantage. Can he move it out a little bit? Giovanni Visconti pushing hard again for a second stage win in the Giro d'Italia to go with that wonderful victory on the Galibier, and giving Movistar an opportunity to go for 3 in a row. With Alex Dowsett's victory in the time trial, to go with the last 2 days. That would make it 4 wins if Visconti could hang on, but well, it's going to be a big ask indeed. 30 seconds his advantage. It goes up again a little bit. He's on the descent. Got about 8 kilometers of downhill roads, then a flat 8 kilometers. He's going to need all of that and more by the time he gets to the flat. $15K to go for our lone attacker, Giovanni Visconti, as Astana tried to put manners on the peloton. Vampire Merida set the pace to the top of the hill. Now it's Astana. Ventoso there, nicely placed for the Movistar team. And I tell you what, if Visconti can't do it, Ventoso could well be a man to watch for.
Yes, he's certainly very much up there in this position, you know, very comfortable to be in the top end in the third position. And when you look at this group, and not a lot of sprinters left in this group, we could see, I think, Feline seems to be in there a flash. We got just before the summit, he seemed to be still hanging on there, but Ventoso is a one who can get over this sort of climbs, and of course in a smaller group sprint, 30-40 riders, he is a real, you know, potential stage victory in a situation like that.
A couple of Bardiani men in there as well. Could one of them be Sasha Modolo? Meanwhile, the Omega Pharma Quick Step train is thundering along, trying to get Mark Cavendish back into contention. Now, what's the gap? Cavendish sitting there, 5th man, and he's got 4 teammates setting the pace. Is that Mezgec on their tail? It's de Court, Cone de Court, I think, from Argus, the big man from Argus Shimano, on the wheel of Mark Cavendish, and 4 Omega Pharma Quick Step riders desperate to try and get Mark Cavendish back into contention. 13.5 kilometers for the front riders, and they've lost a minute. Well, that's going to be tough to get a minute back in 13.4 kilometers. They're going to chase on for a while, but this could be difficult for Mark Cavendish at this point. Could well be a bridge too far. What he said it was going to be tough, but the Omega Pharma Quick Step team set the pace for much of the day in the belief that Mark Cavendish could conceivably get through. Now Visconti makes a little bit of an adjustment on turn in there. 13 kilometers to go. These are rough little roads. Get your braking point wrong and you could be bounced out into the Armco barrier on the right hand side. Rubiano chases alone, still ahead of the bunch, and he'll be rueing the fact that he just didn't have enough strength to stay with Visconti. A lot of daylight between himself and Visconti, so it's going to be tough for Rubiano, bearing in mind he's been out there all day to get back to the Italian. And he's mopped up by the peloton, led by Bardiani Valvoli, with plenty of motivation, because I think Sasha Modolo could well have made it over the top of that hill. 34 seconds, the advantage rises for Visconti. How much time will he have by the time the road flattens out? Tanel Kangert paces Vincenzo Nibali. That's the white jersey, followed by the Maglia Rosa, the pink jersey of race leader Nibali. And it's the darker colours altogether of the Movistar team, represented by Giovanni Visconti. As he hits a little bit of smooth road for the first time in a while, not too much of it. Closed a couple of seconds, but it's absolute, total and utter commitment at this moment. So we see the neutral service car pulled into the right there. Only a little bit of space that they could possibly do it. And they're going to put neutral in behind Visconti. Shouldn't be too much difficulty to get them ahead once they hit to the flat road. Rubiano is mopped up by the main group. And what's going through Visconti's mind at the moment? The gap is going out. The 12 seconds added to it, so instead of closing it down, it's disappearing. So it looks as if it's all up for Mark Cavendish, and it's the group of favourites that should contest the race win today, the stage win, unless of course Visconti manages to hang out ahead. What's going through his mind at the moment, Sean? You've been in this situation in Milan-San Remo, chasing down off the Poggio. The lone rider has a bit of an advantage.
Yes, well, you have the advantage, and if you know the descent a bit, and that is very important here, because we can see it's, you know, total commitment, giving it 100%, and Visconti is descending very well. Problem being, we can see now as they come out here, take a left, it's flattening out quite a lot, and Visconti is in this section. We're still with 10 kilometres to go. It goes down another bit, but in the final 8 kilometres, it's pretty much total flat, and that's going to be the difficult one for Visconti to hold off on his own. We can see the Bardiani team are chasing, so when you have a team like that or commission, they feel they have somebody who can win in the sprint. It's so difficult to hold on out front alone.
So Giovanni Visconti takes every tiny little bit of shelter he can get from one motorbike across to the other. Most of it is psychological, I can assure you. Bardiani, Valvoli are chasing hard. They obviously feel they've got a strong chance of success. We see Radio Shack are also represented. Now, is that Nizzolo, who you'd be surprised if he made it over? Could it be Hondo? Now, a little stall in the group. That's good news for Visconti. Good news, too, for Astana, who decide to go on the attack. We saw this the other day. It's Nibali is happy enough. Is it Khrushchev? Euskaltel. Could it be Samuel Sanchez? Visconti up front.
Palazotti, is he there?
Nizzolo, look, Nizzolo trying to close the gap. Marcato, who had high hopes of making it over with the group. And Nizzolo on a solo run to try and close gaps. So too is Visconti on a solo run, but he's the man out front with the advantage as we come off the descent and onto the flat roads towards the finish. His advantage less than half a minute. So now it's Kruijswijk. We haven't seen much of him since the Cavendish group have closed the gap a little bit, but well, it's over a minute, so it's not going to happen for them. Hey now is given an opportunity. So we've got Marco Marcato, Nizzolo of Radio Shack, Hey now of Sky Pro Cycling, and Marcato, of course, of Vacansoleil. Pressing on, 8 kilometers to go.
And Noli once again from Astana, and Astana seems to be more attacking on the front of the group than riding, and I suppose the reason being that they feel if they allow this one to come to a sprint finish, which Cat 11's possibly taking some of the bonification, but that's hard to see because we have quite a big group of riders. There's 25 riders still in here, and you know, there is certainly some, you know, pretty good riders in the sprint in the final. So
yeah, where's the advantage for Astana in dragging Cadel Evans up to sprint from a small group with the potential to take some time?
Yes, but they're not really dragging it up. They're just going in attack off the front, different riders going off, and that seems to be just to upset the group, not to control and keep the pace high on the front. And the only reason I can come to that they do not want to come together and allow to be a sprint, and where Cat 11s could take some very important time bonuses.
Going to be difficult for Visconti now. Fabio Fellini has managed to get over the hill with the group. He's got a good turn of pace, but he's decided to go out there solo. And Fellini has a little look around and realises the Bardiani are controlling it. Now, can Nizzolo get back into contention in amongst the cars? It's going to be a bit difficult for them, and what sort of energy will they have left if they get there? Meanwhile, Visconti up front, maintaining this advantage, did increase it by a second as a result of a little stall at the end of that little flurry of activity. Now they all look around themselves again. There's another attack. Is it one of the Blanco riders? Could be Kruijswijk again.
Yes, and this is advantage to Visconti, of course. There's not a team riding with 2 or 3 riders and, sharing the pace, pulling on the front. There's a lot of attacks, then a slow down, another attack. And for Visconti, he's holding off quite well. 23 seconds at the moment, but still over 6 kilometres. And this flat run in is going to be the real test for him. It's going to be a big battle for him to hold on out there.
Well, we know that he's capable of suffering out front on his own, and he won't lack for motivation. Our confidence indeed after that stage success on Sunday. Movistar well represented. They've got Ventoso as well, who has a decent sprint as Euskaltel go on the attack. Asanza who's at the back of the group at the top of the hill for Euskaltel.
Pelazzotti.
Yeah, Pelazzotti,
and that tells us the group is not really going at a fast rate. When you see riders attacking like that, it tells that the pace has dropped off quite a bit, and we're back into the same as we see just moments ago. Attack, again, groups coming back, nobody prepared to ride on the front of the peloton, or the group, let's call it. It's not a peloton anymore, and keep the pace real high.
Okay, Asanza from Euskaltel in the orange colours, Pelazzotti in the Italian Road Race Champions colours of Androni Giocattoli. Meanwhile, Vincenzo Nibali is just staying safe in the middle of that group. Another attack, Saxo Tinkoff. And is that Ventoso to the fore? He's just trying to stay in the wheels and save it for later. Uran is there of the favourites, so he's safely ensconced. Little look behind from Visconti, and all this lack of cohesion amongst the group behind is doing Visconti a favour, because he grabs another second inside the final 5 kilometres. Could it possibly be that Giovanni Visconti will manage to do it? Well, he's in a world of pain at the moment, but he knows what he's got to do. He's been there before. Steals a little look over his shoulder. That won't do him any favours. A little bit of comfort, though, will be gained by the fact that he'll see the group is not on him at the moment. Sky now on the attack. And that one's covered by Rafael Majka of Saxo Tinkoff. Majka 8th overall at the moment. 24 seconds, the gap has gone out. And he's a study in power, isn't he? Looks controlled on the bike. Compact style. He's not a tall rider, obviously. And riders getting back up there. Tanel Kangert, who's involved in the final shake-up yesterday, looks like he's cracked. He's going to need someone else to close that gap, perhaps. There's that Majka that gives a little shake of his elbow to ask for a little bit of help. Kruijswijk pushing on now, 24 seconds to the good. Don't look over your shoulder, Giovanni, just pile it onto the line. 3.5 kilometres left.
I'm guessing, once again, very active in this group of chasers.
He was so unfortunate yesterday with his chain falling off within 3 kilometres of the line. And that would have given him a great opportunity of taking a much-needed stage success and a much-needed boost in confidence after his difficulties in the mountains in the previous days. So Rafael Majka is piling it on because he sees they've established a little bit of an advantage. This group is getting bigger. I wonder, has Nizzolo managed to get in there? Visconti, though, now 20 seconds. So he lost 4 seconds in that half a kilometre as a result of that massive, massive turn by those 4 riders. Rafael Majka was one of them. Inside the final 3 kilometres for our lone attacker, Giovanni Visconti of the Movistar team. It's a large group of riders, but not a terribly well organised one, as the attacks come now from Lampre Merida. Bardiani also on the attack. Who have they got up there? Pozzovivo's managed to hang on in amongst the leaders group. Français de Jeu, who've had a very difficult race. They've only 5 riders left in the race. Could they be on for some stage success today? So 3 riders with a small gap, 20 seconds for Visconti. Francis Moret has managed to tag on, but they've been closed down by BMC.
And we're into the technical section. The final number of kilometres does get technical. Inside the 2 kilometres to go, that's where it gets very technical, and there's quite a few, you know, it's very, very technical corners. So for Visconti, that could be an advantage if, you know, there's not a team riding on the front. If they're a little bit of a slowdown, as we see, 19 seconds, it looks like that he could hold on. Unless there's a team who take it up in the very final here, he's in with a great chance of getting his second stage victory.
He gets it wrong, and you know he had to push to the absolute maximum. That's cost him a second or two. He didn't fall off, he's still there, but Giovanni Visconti, his heart will be in his mouth if it wasn't already. And well, that's interesting, because is that a technical problem for the man 7th overall, Carlos Betancourt? Inside 3 kilometres to go, and he's off his bike, so I think it is a technical problem. He won't lose any time as a result of that. Well inside the final 3 kilometres, Lampre Merida on the front. Argus Shimano are represented as well. 23 seconds, so he's gained a couple of seconds despite that little bit of a... But going in a little bit hot into that left-hander. Visconti looks behind himself again inside the final 1,200 metres. And Bardiani absolutely killing themselves to drag this one back. And big stall at the front of the group, because no one wants to take it up. No one wants to use that last bit of energy that would prevent themselves from recovering for the sprint. So this could be just what Giovanni Visconti needs. He's inside the final 1,000 metres. He looks over his shoulder and he sees that he's still got the advantage as he tries to take it all the way to the line. He's in Vicenza. He's on a Pinarello, and I do believe he's got Campagnolo equipment on there. The 80th anniversary of that equipment manufacturer, and Visconti spends as much time looking behind as he does ahead. He's inside the final 500 metres. You can't afford to ease up yet, but it's looking very good indeed for him to take his second stage victory of the race. Now it's taken up by the Blanco team. And Visconti has time to do it again. What an absolutely magic performance. Tacked at the perfect point on the climb, and through the final turn he sees the arrival point, and it just gets better and better for the Movistar team. Their 3rd win in successive days, their 4th win of the race, and Giovanni Visconti takes his 2nd stage victory of the Giro d'Italia. The man, 3 times Italian national road race champion, takes his 2nd victory, with victory in stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia. Who's going to get the sprint from the group? It matters not, because Visconti has taken a wonderful win, and it's looks like Luka Mezgec on the outside for Argus Shimano, but he's not going to get to... Oh, he thinks he's won the stage.
Navardaskas.
Yeah, I think it was Navardaskas, for the 2nd day in a row, has managed to win the group sprint for 2nd place, but he'll be disappointed when he finds out that Visconti has taken stage honour. So Navardaskas got back to the group only to find that there was someone out front, and Nizzolo and crew didn't manage to get back into contention. But what a fabulous end to this stage, and what a great effort by Giovanni Visconti. Despite the best efforts, combined efforts of all the Italian squads and all the other teams, Visconti comes up with a wonderful stage success, and Sean, well, it just gets better and better for the Movistar team.
Yes, what a ride by Visconti there in that final. You know, when you look at the run in the final 8 kilometres, Pan Flash and a group of 30-35 riders chasing him down. We could see just a group attack after attack, and that's, you know, played into the hands of Visconti, but still chapeau to be able to ride right at that pace in the final. He was really on a strong day, and we did see him yesterday finishing very strong as well, behind his chassis. So, you know, he's really finishing this Giro very strong, and what a performance by Movistar.
No luck for Mark Cavendish. He comes in at the head of his group, but disappointment as you see, bounces the bike across the line. Absolute exultation and joy for Giovanni Visconti. He did say after his 1st stage success that it meant so much to him, because he got criticism in Italy that having won 3 Italian road race championships, he'd never won a stage of the Giro. And it's like, well, you know, much always wants more. But now he's doubled up on this year's Giro d'Italia. And there's confirmation of stage honours. Visconti gets it. Navardauskis leads the group in ahead of Mezgec. Pippo Pozzato prominent in the stage honours. Danilo Honda did make it into that group. Puccio as well of the Sky team is to the fore once more. And Modulo and Feline. This was the moment when I thought it actually could have cost him dear, but just about managed to stay upright, stayed off the barriers. And Giovanni Visconti takes an improbable but a wonderful second stage success in the 2013 Giro d'Italia. And you can have the rest of the week off after that one.
Giovanni, another incredible day for you and for Team Movistar. You couldn't imagine this, 4 victories in the team at the start of this race.
È incredibile, guarda, la forza della mente, il morale.
It's incredible.
Ti trasforma come persona, come atleta.
Because the energy, well, transformed me today. I found myself again,
me stesso, la mia forza.
like the Galibier gave me back my
quando sto bene di provare a vincere. Sono felice.
Energy and belief.
This
and
morning,
now, feel very well indeed.
This stage as one which suited you?
Sì, avevamo scelto questa tappa per me, per Fran Ventoso. Io mi sentivo col cuore di dover provare in salita, stavo bene.
Yeah, we had we'd chosen this stage
così,
and we wanted to try on the climb.
Può cambiare tutto.
I wasn't sure I'd be able to manage it all the way on the climb, but I certainly did, and I'm happy, he says. And well, he might be. 30 years of age, man originally from Sicily. Takes another famous victory in the Giro d'Italia. And poor Navardauskis. Let's get a sight of where Cadel Evans is. Does he manage to... I don't think he gets up into the point scoring positions, so that'll be some consolation for Mark Cavendish. And Mezgec was caught out a little bit on that last turn. Hondo just didn't have it, he'd left it all on the hill, and Navardauskis absolutely flew and oops.
The slagging tonight from the teammates.
You know, he must have really killed himself to get over that last hill with the group, because he would have known that Visconti had gone otherwise. So
yes, of course,
he's coming from behind.
Yes, coming from behind and not seeing that there was riders out front, and won the sprint comfortably there into the final corner. But very impressive, as we could see Mark Cavendish.
Oh, this is what it means, you know. That's what it means. You think he just cruises in? He really, really wanted that one. So disappointment for Mark Cavendish. He has taken, of course, 4 points towards the points classification, and now enjoys a 10-point advantage over Cadel Evans.
Yes, but Cadel Evans, I think he would have been up there, I could see.
Did he get points? Okay. Oh, there you go. 10th on the stage for Cadel Evans of the BMC team. He'll get points for that. So still nip and tuck between those riders, and of course Cadel Evans now has 3 opportunities to get ahead of Mark Cavendish in the points competition. No doubt about the winner of the stage, though, Giovanni Visconti. Superb performance. 19 seconds ahead of Ramunas Navardauskis, second for 2 days in a row for the Garmin Sharp team. And a string of Italians behind him.
Vi ricordo intanto ancora l'ordine d'arrivo di questa frazione. Primo posto per Giovanni Visconti della Movistar, al secondo posto dopo 18
Giovanni Visconti retired, of course, from last year's 15th stage of the Giro, and had a little bit of a crisis of confidence, actually. Had to give up the bike for a little while, a few months last year, and then, of course, he got a ban for his previous work with Dr. Michele Ferrari, and has come back refreshed, rejuvenated, and he says he's a new man this year. So Visconti takes the stage honours. Vincenzo Nibali will have a 10th day in the Maglia Rosa, and it's a big one. He'll be wearing the Maglia Rosa skin suit tomorrow. 4 riders up front from the 6th kilometre opened up a maximum of advantage of over 5 minutes. The combined forces of Mega Pharma, Quickstep, Cannondale, Argus Shimano and Movistar, though dragged them back, and they were within a minute by the foot of the final climb to Crosara. And what beautiful scenery as the riders raced through the flatlands of Veneto today. Racing just south of Brescia, of course, where the race finishes on Sunday. Bypassed Verona, raced just north of Mantova, and all the way to Vicenza via this climb of Crosara, which signalled the end of Gert Dox and Luke Durbridge. Danilo De Luca tried again, but just didn't have it and couldn't hold off the bunch. This, the moment that Giovanni Visconti launched the winning attack. Perfectly timed. De Luca went a little bit early and didn't have the legs. Visconti saved his legs for a bit longer and well, had fresher legs anyway, didn't he? Took a little breather, had a look at the gap, and then blasted away from De Luca and then Rubiano. Rubiano did his best and went very close to the top of the hill with Visconti, and had he made it over the top, well, who's to say he mightn't have been challenging for the stage honours in the final sprint, but it was Visconti that led them over the top. Much reduced group. Plenty of activity behind, and that was a close one. So close. At the end he had just 19 seconds. He didn't have a crash in hand, but he stayed upright, and it was another beautiful success for Giovanni Visconti, as he had almost 20 seconds advantage over Ramunas Neverdauskas and co. Little expression of temper from Mark Cavendish indicates just how much it means to him, Sean.
Yes, and I don't see the reason for, because there was a lot of riders out ahead, so Mark Cavendish wasn't going to get any points. There was certainly a lot more than 25 riders, and in that classement, the overall, I think Evans moves up very close. Cavendish at 112, and I make it Cavendish at 112, sorry, and Cadel Evans at 111. So it's very, very tight at the top of that points classification.
Tight indeed. Vincenzo Nibali, though, maintains his 1 minute and 26 second advantage over Cadel Evans. Rigoberto Urán, no, nothing lost, nothing gained. Scarponi, Niemiec, Sant'Ambrogio, they're all in there. Carlos Betancourt is confirmed in 7th overall, 5:15 in arrears, and hasn't lost any time as a result of that late race puncture. And Robert Gesink is now into the top 10 as a result of that adjustment made this morning.